Welcome back to another Lazy Shell tutorial video. This video covers the second half of the commands in the animations editor. We'll talk about all the commands we didn't talk about last time. I broke this video about commands into two for a couple of reasons. First, that first video was getting a bit long, and second, the commands in the first video were related to objects, while a lot of the commands in this video have more to do with effects, although some commands can be used for both objects and effects. New object, effect. These effects are located within the effects editor. These are things like the blue stars that appear when you use group hug, Malo's thunder attacks, etc. Some effects have sequences. Just like with sprites, you can choose whether you want the effect to loop its sequence indefinitely, only play once, or if you select playback off, it doesn't do its sequence at all. Pause script for 2 frames. It's like the command that pauses the script for 1 frame, but twice as long. Pause script until complete. You'll only see this used in tandem with effects. You can choose to pause the script until the effect sequence is done. If you're using a fade in or out command, you can pause until that's done. BPP stands for bits per pixel. Graphics that use 2 BPP format can only use up to 4 colors. 4 BPP graphics can use up to 16 colors. 2 BPP is used to save space whenever possible. You want to make sure you're using the same BPP as the effect that is being referenced. Pause script until bits set. This is sort of like those AMEM commands, in that you'll see some animations will store bits to memory as the animation progresses. This tells the game not to proceed with the rest of the animation until certain bits have been set. Clear effect index. This is like those reset object memory or target memory commands that we saw earlier, except it's specific for effects. Layer 3 on. Effects exist on Layer 3. This lets you change Layer 3's properties. Layer 3 is transparent by default, but you can turn that off. You can also set it to overlap all, so that it is still transparent, but will be in front of everything. Overlap none, so that it's behind everything. Or overlap everything except allies. Again, you want to make sure you select the BPP that matches the effect you're using. We'll talk about the effects editor in depth in a different video, but you can open it up to see what BPP a given effect uses. Layer 3 off. This is used to undo whatever you did in Layer 3 on. Display message. Lets you display either a battle message, battle dialogue, or psychopath message. Battle messages and dialogues can be found in the dialogues editor, while psychopath messages are in the monsters editor. Pause script until dialogue closed. Pretty self-explanatory. You'll normally see this after the display message command. This tells the game to stop reading the rest of the animation commands until the message is off the screen. Fade out object. You would use this in an object or sprite queue. You can also choose how long it takes for the object to fade out completely. Once again, this isn't measured in frames, so I don't know exactly how the number translates to real time, but for frame of reference, in the animation where bosses fade away and then a coin shower appears, the boss's fade out duration is 2. A higher number means the fade out takes longer. Reset sprite sequence. If a sprite is supposed to be looping a sequence and something interrupts it, this resets it back, so it'll start looping again. You'll see this used in scripts that control a monster's behavior when it's attacked. Enemies normally do some sort of walking in place animation, or some other kind of animation that loops when they're idle in battle. If you hit them, they'll do some kind of reaction, like backing up. This resets them back to that idle looping animation. Shine effect. Each sprite has an assigned palette with 16 colors. This command essentially moves the colors in the sprite's palette around. Each color in the palette is numbered from 0 to 15. With this command, color number 1 moves to number 2 then moves to number 3, and so on. This shifting of the colors gives the sprite this shine effect. Take a look at Fire Orb to see an example of how this is used. Starting color index and color count essentially give you the range of colors in the palette you want to move around. In this case, we're starting with color 1 and using 6 colors, including and after color 1. Glow duration determines the speed of the glow. Once again, I don't know what this is measured in. You'll have to play around with it to get the duration that works best for you. Fade object amount. This lets you fade an object in or out. Your objects you can choose from are effects, sprites, and the screen itself. You'll see screen used a lot in various spells. For example, when you use Fire Orb, the screen gets dark. There's another command at the end to make it light again. Shake object. This lets you choose something to shake up and down. You can choose between sprites, the screen itself, or everything. Amount determines the severity of the shake. For example, in Sandstorm, the screen starts out shaking just a little bit, gets more drastic, then goes back to just a little before stopping. Speed determines the time in between the peaks of the shake. In other words, how long does it take in between the lowest point of the shake to the highest point? Stop shaking object. You can probably guess what this does. It stops the shake effect. Screen flash color duration. This makes the entire screen flash one of these colors. You can also choose how long that color remains on the screen. This other screen flash command is just like the one right before it, except you don't get to choose the duration. It's just a quick flash. Bonus messages. Let's look up how these are used. You might have guessed that these are used when you get bonus flowers, like Attack Up. Initialize bonus message sequence. If you're going to display a bonus flower message, you have to have this command to start it, or it won't work right. I don't make the rules. Display bonus message. You choose what message to display and where. Message can be found in the dialogues editor. As for the coordinates, these are relative to the last referenced object, which, in any case it's used in the original game, is an ally character. So this attack message appears at the same X coordinate as the ally being powered up, and appears 32 pixels above them. You can also see that the attack and up messages are two different messages. You need to load up both if you want it to say attack up. Screen effect. While there are some effects that can be edited in the effects editor, some effects or their behaviors are hard-coded, which means there's not a typical script available to edit them. This command calls those effects. For example, GenoFlash. This command will make the big red ball from GenoFlash appear and turn into that sun-like effect that kind of explodes to fill up the whole screen. There's not an editable animation script that controls that part of it. The animation script for GenoFlash in this editor calls things related to tracking player timing inputs, Geno's sprite animations, some sound effects, etc. But for the actual attack with the red ball and the flash, there's just one command that says, do the GenoFlash effect. Play sound using channels. You can choose what sound effect you want to play. The Super Nintendo has 8 of what's known as sound channels. Basically, each sound channel can play a different digital sample or instrument at a time. Sound effects use 2 channels. You can choose which pair of channels you want to use. Songs use multiple channels, so playing a sound effect will usually play over part of a song. This lets you choose which parts of the song you want to interrupt. Play music. These commands let you choose what song to play if you want to change it mid-battle. One plays the song at whatever the current volume is, the other lets you play a song at the volume of your choosing. At least it's supposed to let you choose the volume. You'll notice from selecting this command that there's not actually a way to choose the volume. You can edit the hex at the bottom to change the volume, however. Stop current sound effect. There are some sound effects that will go on forever if you let them. For example, that rumble sound effect that plays during Sandstorm, you need this command to stop it. Fade out music. This fades out the current song to the volume of your choosing. You can also choose how fast you want it to fade to that volume. Again, it's unknown what these things are measured in, so you just have to play around with it until it sounds the way you want it to. Set target. You can use this to manually set a target for an attack or event. Since the player can manually choose their targets, and enemies' targets are chosen through commands in the monsters editor, you don't see this command used often. You'll see this in unique battle events, like when Belome eats Mallow. Modify item inventory. First step is to choose an item. If you leave this box unchecked, the item is added to your inventory. If remove is checked, it's removed. Keep in mind this command is specific to your normal consumable item inventory. You don't want to use this command for equipment or special items. Modify special item inventory. This works the same as the other inventory command, but for special items. Coins. You can choose to add coins to your inventory. You can also choose the amount to add. Store item to inventory, Yoshi cookie. Here's the thing. I've never been able to get this command to work right without crashing the game, but here's what I think it's supposed to do. Every enemy has an item value assigned to it for what you get if you use a Yoshi cookie and Yoshi successfully eats that monster. Even if the monster can't be eaten, it still has an assigned item value. I think this command is supposed to take the target's Yoshi cookie item and put it in your inventory. But again, I've never been able to get it to work. And oddly enough, looking at the animation script for the Yoshi cookie item, it doesn't even use this command. I can't find anywhere where it does. Mask effect. There are some effects that take up the whole screen. For example, if you open up the effects editor and look at poison gas's background, you'll see it's big enough to cover the whole screen. Masks make it so only part of the effect shows. Poison gas uses the circle mask. These are all predetermined shapes you can use, except polygon. If you use polygon, you need to pair it with the command listed immediately afterward. Mask coordinates. This creates the shape of that polygon mask effect. Let's look at Bowser Crush. You can see it uses the polygon mask with the mask coordinates listed right after. However, notice that when you choose mask coordinates from the drop-down menu, nothing shows up. This command is broken. We can't enter the coordinates. You could enter the coordinates manually by editing the hex down at the bottom, but it's easy to do that wrong, which can sometimes screw up the commands that come afterward, so edit at your own risk. Sprite sequence speed. You can change the speed of the animation the current sprite is using. Start and end tracking for ally button timing. There are some scripts, most notably ally spells, that keep track of your inputs. These commands mark the window within the animation that the game starts and finishes keeping track of your inputs. The commands afterward are the various types of timings. Rotate control pad, press whatever button with good timing, press the button repeatedly, etc. You'll have one of these commands in between your start and end tracking commands. You'll see that all of these commands include a jump to address command. If you don't successfully time the attack, the game jumps to whatever command is at that address. Let's look at how these are used. Timing for one button press. OK, perfect range. This is used in Mario's jump. There are 2 degrees of timing, OK timing and perfect timing. These 2 top boxes determine how long the game keeps track of your inputs. In this case, 45 frames. This middle section determines the timing for perfect timing. Jump has a perfect timing window of 6 frames. The end perfect timing box determines when too much time has passed for you to time the spell and no bonus damage is dealt. Here in Geno Whirl, we have this command. The timing for one button press, any timing. There are no degrees of timing, it's either you time it or you don't. These top boxes are again how long the game keeps track of your inputs. The end of timing box tells the game where in that window they need to press the button in order to time it. In this case, the range to time it is the same as the range that the game keeps track of all of your inputs. After all, why would the game need to keep track of your inputs if you're not in the timing range anymore? Here in Fire Orb, we have timing for multiple button presses. This is where you need to mash the button repeatedly. Once you've pressed the timing button, this tells the game how long to wait before accepting input of that button again. Notice that the displayed address it jumps to is not the same as the address in the command input. Lazy Shell incorrectly displays the address in the command window. Something to make note of if you're editing these commands. There's a similar command called timing for button mash, possible power-ups. This sets how many times the player can press the button to increase the spell's power. Here in Sleepy Time, we have timing for rotation. This sets the frame window for how long the game keeps track of your inputs and how many rotations it keeps track of. You'll see this used in 2 ways. In Toadstool spells, Sleepy Time and Mute, if you do the max number of rotations, the spell will attack all foes instead of one. For Bowser's spells, Terrorize and Poison Gas, its power is increased by the number of rotations you do up to the limit. In Geno Beam, we have the timing for holding the button down. This is used on all of Geno's Hold Y for Power specials. Depending on how long you hold it, its power changes. Level 1 is the weakest, level 4 is the strongest. If you hold it too long, its power overcharges and it goes to its base level. You can set the windows for those various timings over here. Something to note about this command down here, timing for mute. This says it's for mute, the spell, but it's compatible with any of those rotation commands in general. This command says, did the player max out their rotations? If so, jump to this address. Sleepy Time and Mute are one-target attacks that target all foes if you max out rotations, like I mentioned earlier. You see this command used to make sleepy Z's appear over multiple enemies' heads, rather than one. Summon Monster. You can summon a monster to the battle, even if it's a monster that wasn't originally present in that monster formation. You can choose which position in the formation to overwrite with this new monster. There are 8 positions in a formation. You can see what monsters are in a given formation using the formations editor. This is used during the Punchinello fight. That's how he summons so many different types of bombs to the field. Display can't run dialogue. It doesn't get much easier than this. It displays the dialogue that tells the player they can't run away. Next we have store OMEM60 to item inventory. This takes whatever number is currently stored in OMEM60 and stores that number's corresponding item to inventory. All the items in the game are ordered by number. You can see this order number in the items editor. All animations are sorted by category and numbered as well. You can see this order number in the animations editor. Let's walk through an example. Something important to note before we start is that AMEM60 and OMEM60 are interchangeable for purposes of this command. The mushroom animation sequence starts out by setting memory address 7EE022 to whatever is in AMEM address 60. When the animation is first loaded up, address 60 becomes the animation's index number, which is this number at the top, which in this case is 0. Address 60 changes frequently, so we want to store this value to an address that won't change unless we tell it to. That's what this command does. Down at the very bottom of the animation is the subroutine for getting a freebie. You can see that address 60 is changed to the number we stored at the beginning of the sequence, which was 0. Then we take that number and add 96 to it. 0 plus 96 is 96. Then we use this command store OMEM60 to item inventory. This stores the item numbered 96 in the items list to our inventory, which, if we look in the items editor, we see item number 96 is a mushroom. Last but not least, we have Run Battle Event. Enter in the battle event number you want the game to go to. If you choose battle events from the drop-down here, you can see from this drop-down right next to it that all the battle events are labeled for your convenience. If you choose battle number 0, it'll take you to the scene where Mallow punches Croco. Keep in mind that you can't just choose an event and have it work. If you want the Mallow punching Croco scene to work, Mallow and Croco have to actually be on screen. Offset is a bit more nebulous. Changing the offset seems to change where in the event the command jumps to, but that's as far as I've gotten. For example, Jinx's unique attacks start out in a normal monster attack animation script, but then they jump to a battle script to finish the attack. All of Jinx's attacks exist within one battle event. All of Jinx's different monster attack animations reference this same battle event, but at different offsets. Offset 0 leads to Jinxed, offset +2 leads to Triple Kick, and offset +4 goes to Quicksilver. Now that covers all of the animation commands. This is a lot to take in, so don't feel bad if you don't understand it, even after hearing me talk about it. Really, the best way to learn is experimenting. But if you do have any questions, you're welcome to ask. I'll do what I can. But that's going to be it for now. If you find these videos helpful and you want to see more, please consider subscribing. As always, if you have any comments, anything you need help with, anything you want to see in a future Lazy Shell video, feel free to reach out or mention it in the comments. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.